My husband and his family locked me and my daughter out during a snowstorm, laughing, "Freeze to death, useless coward." I hugged Josie and walked away without a word. 3 days later, my phone exploded with 47 desperate messages begging me. "Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story. My husband and his family locked me out of our house during a snowstorm, laughing through the window. "Freeze to death, useless coward." Those were the words my brother-in-law screamed at me while my 7-year-old daughter stood shivering beside me, her little hand gripping my coat so tight her knuckles were white. I got Josie, turned around, and walked away without a word. 3 days later, my inbox was flooded with 47 desperate messages begging me to come back. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the night my marriage didn't just end, it froze over. It was Thursday. I had just finished a 12-hour shift in the ER. If you are a nurse, or you know one, you know that a 12-hour shift is never just 12 hours. It's 12 hours of adrenaline, heartbreak, sore feet, and skipping lunch. That specific day, we had lost a patient, a young father who had a heart attack. I was drained. Physically, emotionally, spiritually drained. All I wanted was to pick up my daughter, Josie, go home to my warm house, take a hot shower, and sleep for a week. The weather forecast had warned about a blizzard for days. In Minnesota, we don't panic about snow, but this was different. The radio kept saying life-threatening conditions and stay off the roads. By the time I picked Josie up from her after-school program, the world was white. The wind was howling like a wounded animal, shaking my SUV. Visibility was zero. It took me an hour to make a 20-minute drive. I finally pulled into our driveway just before midnight. The house was blazing with lights. Every single window was glowing. It looked like a beacon of warmth. I remember feeling a wave of relief. I thought, thank God, Derek is home, the heat is on, we made it. I grabbed Josie's backpack and held her hand. The snow was already up to my knees. The wind chill was 20 below zero. It was the kind of cold that hurts your lungs when you breathe. We trudged to the front door, heads down against the wind. I reached for my keys, my fingers stiff and clumsy in my gloves. I slid the key into the lock and turned it. Nothing. It didn't turn. I frowned, wiping the snow off the handle. I tried again. Maybe the lock was frozen? But no, the key went in, it just wouldn't turn. It was the wrong key. Or rather, it was the right key for the wrong lock. "Mommy, I'm cold," Josie whimpered, burying her face in my coat. "I know, baby, just a second," I said, panic starting to flutter in my chest. I rang the doorbell. Once. Twice. I pounded on the door. "Derek! Derek, open up! It's us!" I saw movement through the frosted glass of the living room window next to the door. The porch light flicked on, blinding me for a second. I squinted and saw my husband, Derek. He was standing there, looking out. But he didn't look concerned. He looked uncomfortable. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Then, he was shoved aside. My brother-in-law, Travis, took his place. Travis was holding a beer bottle, his face flushed red, grinning like he was watching his favorite comedy special. He unlatched the window just a crack. "Derek! The key isn't working. Let us in!" I shouted over the wind. Travis laughed. It was a cruel, sharp sound. "Yeah, about that, Val. We changed the locks today." I stared at him, confused. My brain couldn't process it. "What? Why? It's -20 degrees. Open the door." Autumn decided it would be funny, Travis said, taking a swig of his beer. Autumn is his girlfriend, a woman I had welcomed into my home. Plus, we're having a family meeting. No outsiders allowed. Outsiders? I'm his wife. Josie is his daughter. Open the damn door! I screamed, my patience snapping. Travis leaned closer to the crack in the window. I could smell the alcohol on his breath even from where I stood. Behind him, I saw my mother-in-law, Patricia, sitting on my favorite recliner, sipping wine. She looked at me, then looked away, smoothing her skirt. My father-in-law was laughing at something on the TV. They knew. They all knew we were out here. Sorry, Val, Travis sneered. House rules. No losers allowed tonight. I looked at Derek. He was standing in the hallway, staring at his shoes. Derek! I screamed his name. Your daughter is freezing. Do something. Derek looked up for a split second. I saw the hesitation. I saw him look at his older brother, then at his mother. And then, he looked back down. He did nothing. He chose them. In that moment, watching my husband cower in the hallway of the house I paid for, something inside me broke. Travis laughed again. Go find a shelter, Nurse Ratchet. Maybe you can work an extra shift. Travis, please, I begged, hate rising in my throat like bile. Just let Josie in. You can lock me out, but let her in. That's when he said it. The words that I will never, ever forget. He put his face right against the glass, his breath fogging it up, and shouted, Freeze to death, useless coward. No girls allowed tonight. Then he slammed the window shut and locked it. I saw him turn around and high-five my husband. I saw my mother-in-law laughing. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds. My phone was at 2% battery. My car was running low on gas. The storm was raging around us. I could have picked up a rock and smashed the window. I could have kicked the door down. I could have called the police right then and there. But Josie was crying. Her little body was shaking so hard it vibrated against my leg. Mommy, my toes hurt, she sobbed. If I stayed there arguing, if I waited for the police in this weather, she could get hypothermia. I looked at that house, the house my father left me, the house filled with people who supposedly loved us. And I realized they wanted me to beg. They wanted a show. I wasn't going to give them one. I didn't bang on the door again. I didn't scream. I just scooped Josie up into my arms, holding her close to share my body heat. It's okay, baby, I whispered into her ear, though my own voice was shaking. We're going on an adventure. I turned my back on my husband, on my home, and on my entire life. I walked back to the car, buckled Josie in, and drove away into the white darkness. Before we move on to what happened next, I just want to say thank you for listening to my story. If you're watching this from a warm place, let me know in the comments which city you are in. I'd love to know where you are joining me from. Driving away from my own house was the hardest thing I have ever done. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles felt like they were going to pop through the skin. The heater in my old SUV was blasting on high, but I couldn't stop shivering. It wasn't just the cold, it was the shock. The roads were treacherous. The snow was falling so fast and thick that my headlights just reflected back at me, creating a wall of white. It's called a whiteout, and it's terrifying. You lose all sense of direction. You can't tell where the road ends and the ditch begins. I was driving 5 miles per hour, praying to a God I wasn't sure was listening anymore. Mommy, where are we going? Josie asked from the back seat. Her voice was small and scared. I forced a smile, looking at her in the rearview mirror. We're going to a special late-night diner, honey. Like a secret mission. Doesn't that sound fun? But why didn't Daddy let us in? She asked. That question hit me like a physical punch to the gut. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that her father is a spineless coward who let his bully of a brother lock her out in a blizzard? You don't. Not when you're trying to keep the car from sliding into a snowbank. Daddy and Uncle Travis are playing a silly game, I lied. But we aren't playing. We're going to get hot chocolate. I drove for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. I passed abandoned cars on the side of the road, buried in drifts. I saw emergency lights flashing in the distance. The world felt apocalyptic. I realized with a jolt of terror that if I ran out of gas or slid off the road, we could actually die out here. Travis wasn't just being mean, he had put our lives in danger. Finally, I saw a neon sign flickering through the snow. Mel's Diner. It was the only light in the void. I pulled into the parking lot, which was just a sheet of ice. I practically carried Josie inside. The bell above the door jingled, a cheerful sound that felt completely out of place with the nightmare we were living. The diner was warm. It smelled like old coffee, bacon grease, and bleach. To me, it smelled like heaven. There were only 2 truckers sitting at the counter and a waitress who looked like she had been working there since the 70s. Her name tag said Marge. Marge looked up as we stumbled in. She took one look at us, me in my scrubs, shivering, holding a little girl wrapped in a coat that was too big for her, and she immediately sprang into action. "Honey, get that child in a booth by the heater," she commanded. Her voice was raspy, like sandpaper, but kind. We sat down in a red vinyl booth. The heat from the vent hit us, and I felt tears prick my eyes. Marge didn't ask for our order. She just brought over 2 mugs of steaming hot cocoa with mountains of whipped cream and a pot of coffee for me. "On the house," Marge said, sliding a plate of fries onto the table. "You look like you've been through a war." "Something like that," I whispered, wrapping my hands around the mug to thaw my fingers. Josie drank her cocoa greedily. "It's so good, Mommy," she said, a little color finally returning to her pale cheeks. I watched her, my heart aching. I pulled out my phone. 1% battery. I stared at the screen. No missed calls. No texts. Nothing from Derek. Nothing from anyone. It had been 45 minutes since we left. Any normal husband, even after a fight, even after a bad joke, would have texted to make sure his wife and child didn't freeze to death. He would have realized it went too far. He would have panicked. But the screen remained black. That silence was louder than Travis's screaming. It told me everything I needed to know. Derek wasn't just weak, he didn't care. Or maybe he was so afraid of his family that his fear outweighed his love for us. Either way, the result was the same, we were on our own. I sipped the coffee. It was bitter and burnt, but the caffeine gave me a little clarity. I needed a plan. We couldn't stay at the diner forever. The storm wasn't letting up. "Marge," I called out softly. "Is there a motel nearby that's open?" Marge wiped the counter with a rag. "The Motel 6 down the highway has a generator. It ain't the Ritz, but it's warm." "Thank you," I said. My phone died in my hand right then. The screen went black, cutting off my only connection to the world. A strange sense of peace settled over me. They couldn't reach me now. I couldn't reach them. The cord was cut. I looked at Josie, who was dipping a fry into her whipped cream, giggling. I made a silent vow right there in that booth at Mel's Diner. I swore that I would never, ever let anyone make my daughter feel unwanted again. I swore that I would take back control. "Ready for the next part of the adventure, Jojo?" I asked. "Yeah," she said, jumping down from the booth. I left a $20 bill on the table for Marge, it was all the cash I had, and we headed back out into the storm. I didn't know it yet, but the cold outside was nothing compared to the cold reality awaiting me the next morning. The Motel 6 was exactly as Marge had described it, warm, but definitely not the Ritz. The carpet smelled like stale cigarettes and lemon cleaner, and the fluorescent light in the bathroom flickered like a strobe light in a bad horror movie. But to me, that room was a sanctuary. It had a lock on the door that I controlled. I tucked Josie into the bed furthest from the door. She fell asleep almost instantly, exhausted from the drama of the night. I lay on the other bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind howl outside. I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing. I kept replaying the scene at the window over and over. Travis's laugh. Derek's silence. When the sun finally came up, the storm had passed, leaving behind a world buried in pristine, white snow. It looked peaceful, which felt like a lie. My first priority was to pay for the room. I had checked in late, and the night clerk had been too tired to run my card, saying I could pay in the morning. I went down to the front desk, my stomach growling. I realized I hadn't eaten since lunch the day before. "That'll be $89 plus tax," the morning clerk said, popping gum. I pulled out my debit card. This was the card linked to our joint checking account. Derek and I both deposited our paychecks into it. I was the primary breadwinner. My salary as a specialized ER nurse was nearly double what Derek made in data entry, so I knew there was money in there. We also had a joint savings account where we were saving for a new roof and Josie's college fund. Last I checked, there was about $15,000 in savings and $3,000 in checking. I swiped the card. Declined. The clerk looked at me with pity. "Maybe try again, hon?" I frowned. "That's impossible. I just got paid 2 days ago." I swiped again. Declined. A cold sweat broke out on the back of my neck. It was a different kind of cold than the blizzard. This was the cold dread of financial ruin. "Do you have another card?" the clerk asked. Let me check my app," I stammered. I had plugged my phone in overnight, so it was fully charged now. I still hadn't turned it on because I didn't want to see the messages from Derek yet. I powered it up. As soon as the screen lit up, notifications started flooding in, buzzing relentlessly in my hand. I ignored them all and opened my banking app. I logged in with trembling fingers. I looked at the balance and gasped. I felt the blood drain from my face. Checking account, $12.50. Savings account, $42. I stared at the numbers, blinking, hoping it was a glitch. $42? Where was the $15,000? Where was my paycheck? I tapped on the transaction history. My breath caught in my throat. Transfer to T. Miller, $5,000. Transfer to T. Miller, $5,000. Payment to Elite Boat Rentals, $2,500. Cash withdrawal, $800. The transactions were all dated yesterday. While I was at work saving lives, while I was driving through a blizzard to pick up our daughter, my husband and his brother had drained our accounts dry. T. Miller. Travis Miller. They had stolen everything. The roof money. The emergency fund. Josie's college money. I felt like vomiting. I leaned against the counter for support. This wasn't just a cruel prank anymore. Locking us out was assault. Taking the money? That was theft. That was a declaration of war. "Ma'am?" the clerk asked. I have to make a call," I whispered. I quickly transferred the remaining $12 from checking and $42 from savings into a separate, old account I had from before I was married, just to secure it. Then, I called the bank's fraud line immediately. "I need to freeze my accounts," I told the operator, my voice shaking with rage. "My husband has stolen my money." "I see," the operator said calmly. "Since it is a joint account, ma'am, he has legal access to the funds. Unless you are divorced or have a court order, it is difficult to classify this as theft." "He emptied it." I practically screamed in the motel lobby. "He left me and his child with nothing. I can freeze the account so no more transactions can be made, the operator offered. But I cannot reverse the transfers without an investigation. Do it, I snapped. Freeze everything. And remove him from authorized access to my credit card. I hung up, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I paid for the room using an emergency credit card I kept in my wallet. Thank God I had kept one solely in my name. I went back up to the room. Josie was sitting up in bed, rubbing her eyes. Mommy, I'm hungry. I looked at my daughter. I looked at the $42 balance on my phone. I had no home to go to. My accounts were empty. My husband was a thief. I realized then that the marriage I thought I had was a hallucination. I had been sleeping next to a monster. I sat down on the edge of the bed and pulled Josie into a hug. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I felt a hard, cold resolve settling in my chest, replacing the fear. We're going to get pancakes, baby, I said. And then Mommy is going to visit Aunt Brenda. I knew I needed help. I needed an ally. And I knew exactly who the black sheep of Derek's family was, the only person who hated Travis as much as I did right now. But before I tell you about Aunt Brenda, I need you to understand how we got here. How I let these parasites into my life in the first place. It started with the house. My father's house. To understand why being locked out of that house hurt so much, you have to understand what that house meant to me. It wasn't just wood and bricks. It was my father. My dad, Dr. Thomas Vance, was a general practitioner in our small town for 40 years. He was the kind of doctor who made house calls and accepted apple pies as payment from patients who couldn't afford medicine. He raised me alone after my mom died when I was 5. He worked double shifts, saved every penny, and built that 2-story Victorian house on Elm Street with his own hands and the help of a few contractors. He taught me everything I know about dignity and hard work. He used to say, Valerie, never rely on anyone else for your foundation. Build your own ground. He planted a huge oak tree in the front yard the year I was born. By the time I was 30, its branches shaded the entire porch. When Dad passed away 3 years ago from pancreatic cancer, he left the house to me. It was fully paid off. No mortgage. It was his final gift, a fortress to keep me safe. I met Derek around that time. He was sweet, quiet, and seemed so different from his loud, obnoxious family. He worked in IT support, didn't make much money, but I didn't care. I made a good salary as a nurse, and I had the house. I thought we were a team. The trouble started 18 months ago. Derek's parents, Patricia and Bob, were renting a condo downtown. Their landlord decided to sell the place, and they had 30 days to move. They claimed they were looking for the perfect retirement home and just needed a place to crash for a few weeks. It's just for 2 weeks, Val, Derek had pleaded, giving me those puppy dog eyes. Their family. We have the extra bedrooms. It's the Christian thing to do. I hesitated. I knew his parents were difficult. Patricia was critical and Bob was lazy. But I loved Derek, and I wanted to be a supportive wife. Okay, I said. 2 weeks. 2 weeks turned into 2 months. 2 months turned into a year. It started slowly. First, Patricia rearranged my kitchen. I came home from work to find my spices moved, my pots in different cabinets. It makes more sense this way, she said dismissively when I asked her about it. Then, Bob started parking his rusty truck on the grass, right next to Dad's oak tree. Driveway's too narrow, he grunted. Then came the comments about money. I paid the bills. I paid for the electricity, the water, the groceries. Yet, Bob would sit at the dinner table, eating the roast I bought and cooked, and lecture me about wasteful spending because I bought organic milk for Josie. You think you're rich just because your daddy left you a house, he would sneer. Money doesn't buy class. I bit my tongue. I did it for Derek. I did it to keep the peace. I told myself, it's temporary. They'll move out soon. But the real nightmare began 3 months ago. Travis, Derek's older brother, got divorced. His wife finally kicked him out because he couldn't hold a job and drank too much. Naturally, he came knocking on our door. He has nowhere else to go, Val, Derek whispered to me in our bedroom, looking terrified. Mom says if we don't take him in, he'll be homeless. We have a 7-year-old daughter, I argued. Travis drinks. He's volatile. I don't want him around Josie. He's family. Derek raised his voice, something he rarely did. Why are you so heartless? It's just until he gets back on his feet. So, Travis moved into the guest room, my father's old study. Within a week, the dynamic in the house shifted completely. It was no longer my house. It was their territory. I became the intruder. Travis didn't just sleep there, he took over. He sat in the living room in his underwear watching TV all day. He drank my wine. He complained about the food. And he started whispering in Derek's ear. I'd hear them in the garage. She bosses you around, man, Travis would say. You let a woman tell you what to do? In your own house? You need to show her who the man is. Instead of defending me, instead of reminding Travis that it was my house and my salary keeping them all fed, Derek would just laugh nervously. Yeah, I know, she can be a lot. I watched my husband shrink. I watched him transform from a partner into a minion for his toxic family. One evening, about a week before the blizzard, I came home to find a painting missing from the hallway. It was a landscape painting my father had bought in Italy. It wasn't expensive, but it had sentimental value. Where is the painting? I asked Patricia. Oh, that dusty old thing, she waved a hand. I put it in the attic. It was depressing. I put up something more modern. She pointed to a cheap, neon love sign she had hung in its place. I felt a hot flash of rage. This is my house, Patricia. You don't get to redecorate. Travis chimed in from the couch. Technically, it's marital property. So it's half Derek's house. Which means it's family property. That's not how inheritance works, I snapped. You're always talking about money, Travis sneered. It's ugly. You're lucky Derek puts up with a greedy woman like you. I looked at Derek, waiting for him to step in. Waiting for him to say, don't talk to my wife that way. Derek just looked at his phone. Can we not fight? I'm tired. That was the moment I should have kicked them all out. But I didn't. I was afraid of breaking up my family. I was afraid of being alone. I thought if I just worked harder, cooked better, smiled more, things would go back to normal. I was so stupid. I didn't realize that to them, I wasn't a person. I was just a wallet with a pulse. And the blizzard gave them the perfect opportunity to show me exactly what they thought of me. I need to talk about Derek. It's easy to hate Travis and his parents, they are cartoon villains, almost. But Derek is the tragedy. Or maybe he's the biggest villain of all because I actually trusted him. When I met Derek 5 years ago, he was gentle. He used to bring me coffee at the hospital when I was on break. He played dolls with Josie, who was 2 at the time from a previous relationship that ended amicably. He seemed to love how ambitious I was. He told me he was proud of my career. You save lives, Val, he would say, looking at me with awe. I just fix spreadsheets. You're a hero. It felt good to be admired. After my dad died, I was lonely. I wanted a partner. I wanted someone to share the beautiful house with. But there was a seed of rot in Derek that I ignored. It was his desperate need for approval. He couldn't make a decision without calling his mother. Should we buy this car, Val? Hold on, let me ask Mom what she thinks of Fords. Do you want Italian for dinner? Wait, Travis said that place is overpriced. At first, it was annoying but manageable. But when the parasites moved in, that need for approval turned into a sickness. Travis, miserable in his own life, made it his mission to destroy ours. He couldn't stand that I was the breadwinner. It challenged his fragile masculinity. Since he couldn't be successful, he had to drag Derek down to his level to feel better about himself. It's the crab bucket mentality: if I can't escape, neither can you. I remember a specific night, about a month ago. I had just received a promotion to head nurse of the ER. It came with a significant raise. I came home excited, carrying a bottle of champagne. Guess what? I beamed, putting the bottle on the table. I got the promotion. Derek smiled, reaching for me. That's amazing, honey. I knew you. A promotion? Travis interrupted, walking into the kitchen and opening a beer. So, what? You're gonna be bossing more people around? Does that mean you'll be home even less? Derek's smile faltered. He pulled his hand back. Someone has to pay the bills, I said, trying to keep my tone light. It's embarrassing, bro, Travis said to Derek, ignoring me. Letting your wife wear the pants. My ex-wife tried that career woman crap. It means she doesn't respect you. A man should provide. I provide plenty, Derek mumbled, but he looked down at the table. Do you? Travis laughed. She makes what? Double your salary? You're basically her assistant. I saw the light go out in Derek's eyes. The pride he had for me vanished, replaced by shame. It's not a competition, I said firmly. We are partners. Partners, Travis scoffed. Right. That night, Derek didn't drink the champagne with me. He went to the garage with Travis. They stayed out there until 2 a.m., drinking. When Derek came to bed, he reeked of alcohol and resentment. Do you think I'm a loser? He asked in the dark. No, Derek. Of course not. Travis thinks you look down on me, he whispered. I don't care what Travis thinks. I care what you think. Maybe you should turn down the promotion, he said. I sat up, shocked. What? Why? So you can be home more. Cook dinner more. Mom says the house is getting messy. I lay back down, stunned silent. He was asking me to shrink myself so he could feel bigger. He was asking me to sabotage our financial future, Josie's future, because his unemployed brother called him names. No, I said into the darkness. I'm keeping the job. He rolled over and turned his back to me. That was the beginning of the Cold War. From that day on, Derek stopped being my husband. He became Travis's lieutenant. He started nitpicking my spending. He stopped asking about my day. He started making snide comments about my ego. He was being programmed. Day by day, hour by hour, his family was rewriting his brain. They convinced him that I was the enemy, that I was controlling him, that I was the reason he wasn't happy. And the terrified little boy inside Derek believed them. Because it was easier to blame me than to stand up to them. So when the blizzard came, and Travis suggested the prank, Derek didn't see it as cruelty. He saw it as a test. A test of his loyalty to the clan. And to pass the test, to finally get a high five from his big brother, he had to sacrifice me. He sold his wife and child for a pat on the head. But back in the motel room, looking at my empty bank account, I realized something. If he was willing to play dirty, I had to stop playing nice. I had to stop being the hero nurse and start being a surgeon. I needed to cut the cancer out. Day 3. The silence broke. I was sitting in the motel room, eating stale donuts with Josie. I had finally turned my phone network back on after keeping it in airplane mode to save the last drops of battery before I charged it. As soon as the connection established, the phone vibrated so hard it nearly fell off the table. It didn't stop. Buzz. 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 It was like an angry insect. 47 messages. Voicemails. Missed calls. I took a deep breath, picked up the phone, and started reading. It was a fascinating case study in manipulation. I could see the timeline of their emotions just by the timestamps. Friday, 1 a.m., 1 hour after I left Derek. Val, where did you go? Stop being dramatic and come back. It's cold. Travis, drama queen. Can't take a joke? Come unlock the back door, I lost my key. They were annoyed. They expected me to be sitting in the car in the driveway, crying, waiting for them to forgive me and let me in. They didn't think I would actually leave. Friday, 8 a.m., mother-in-law, Patricia Valerie, this behavior is unacceptable. You are embarrassing the family. The neighbors might see your car is gone. Come home and cook breakfast, Bob is hungry. Derek, Val, seriously. Answer me. Mom is really mad. Notice the theme? No one asked if Josie was okay. No one asked if we were alive. They were worried about breakfast and neighbors. Friday, 6 p.m., Derek, I called your work. They said you called in sick. So I know you're alive. Why are you ignoring me? You're acting crazy. Travis, bro, she's trying to manipulate you. Don't fall for it. She'll come crawling back when she runs out of money. This message made me laugh out loud. A cold, dark laugh. Runs out of money? You mean the money you stole, Travis? Saturday, 9 a.m., Derek, Val, please. Just tell me where you are. I'm worried. Derek, are you with a guy? Is that it? Are you cheating on me? There it was. Projection. When a narcissist loses control, they accuse you of the very things they are capable of. Saturday, 2 p.m., mother-in-law, I can't believe you took Josie. That is kidnapping. We are her family. You are keeping her from her father. Travis, we're going to call the cops if you don't bring the kid back by tonight. I felt a spike of fear, but then I remembered, I was the mother. They locked us out in a blizzard. I had the text messages to prove they knew we were out there. Let them call the cops. Sunday, 7 a.m., today the tone shifted. Desperation set in. They must have realized I wasn't coming back to cook Sunday dinner. Or maybe they realized that without my paycheck, the heating bill due tomorrow wouldn't get paid. Derek, Val, baby, please come home. I'm sorry. We were just joking. Travis feels terrible. Liar. Derek, I love you. We can talk about this. Just come home. The house feels empty without you. Mother-in-law, we are a family, Valerie. Families forgive. Don't throw away 5 years of marriage over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Locking a child in negative 20-degree weather is a misunderstanding. I looked at Josie. She was watching cartoons, blissfully unaware of the war unfolding on my screen. She was safe. She was warm. I didn't reply to a single message. Not yet. Replying gives them power. Silence terrifies them. Instead, I opened my contacts and scrolled to B. Brenda Miller. Aunt Brenda. She was Derek's aunt, Bob's sister. 5 years ago, at our wedding, she was the only one on the groom's side who didn't look like she was sucking on a lemon. She gave us a generous check and whispered to me, if you ever need to escape the asylum, call me. The family hated her. They called her the Witch of Westlake. Why? Because she was a successful real estate mogul who refused to lend them money. Bob called her selfish. Travis called her a snob. I knew the real story. Brenda had cut them off years ago after Bob stole money from their mother's estate. She was the only person who saw them for what they were. I pressed call. It rang twice. Hello? Her voice was crisp, professional. Aunt Brenda? I said, my voice finally cracking. It's Valerie. Derek's wife. There was a pause. Valerie? You sound terrible. What did those vultures do to you? They locked me out, I sobbed, the dam finally breaking. They locked me and Josie out in the blizzard. And they stole all the money. Where are you? Brenda asked immediately. Her voice dropped an octave, becoming deadly serious. The Motel 6 off the highway. Pack your bags, Brenda commanded. I'm coming to get you. Don't answer the door for anyone else. I hung up and looked at Josie. Pack up, Jojo. We're going to a real house. I felt a glimmer of hope. I had been playing defense for 3 days. It was time to start playing offense. 30 minutes later, a sleek black Range Rover pulled into the slushy parking lot of the Motel 6. It looked like a spaceship compared to the rusted sedans and trucks around it. Aunt Brenda stepped out. She was 60, but looked 45. She wore a camel-colored wool coat, designer boots, and oversized sunglasses even though it was cloudy. She didn't look like a witch. She looked like a savior. She walked straight to our room door, where I was waiting. She took one look at my wrinkled scrubs and Josie's tired face, and her jaw tightened. She didn't hug me, Brenda wasn't a hugger, but she put a firm hand on my shoulder. Get in the car, she said. The drive to Brenda's house in Westlake was silent, but comfortable. Westlake was the wealthy part of town, the place where doctors and lawyers lived. Brenda lived in a sprawling modern glass and stone house overlooking the frozen lake. Inside, it was immaculate. White furniture, abstract art, floor-to-ceiling windows. It was the complete opposite of my house, which was currently cluttered with Travis's beer cans and Patricia's knickknacks. Go play in the media room, Josie, Brenda said, pointing to a room with a massive TV. There's Disney Plus and snacks. Once Josie was gone, Brenda poured 2 glasses of expensive red wine and sat me down at the marble kitchen island. Talk, she said. Every detail. Don't leave anything out. So I did. I told her about the slow invasion. The remodeling. The insults. The blizzard. The freeze-to-death comment. And finally, the $42 bank balance. Brenda listened without interrupting. She swirled her wine, her eyes narrowing like a hawk. When I mentioned the stolen money, she slammed her glass down on the counter hard enough to make me jump. Amateurs, she hissed. Bob used to pull the same stunts. Stealing from family and calling it sharing. It's genetic with them. I don't know what to do, Brenda, I confessed. I have no money for a lawyer. I can't go back there. You have to go back, Brenda said calmly. I stared at her. What? Are you crazy? They endangered my child. Valerie, listen to me, Brenda leaned forward. If you file for divorce now, what happens? You have a joint account that is empty. It's he said she said about the money. They will claim you spent it. They will drag out the custody battle. Travis will lie and say you abandoned the home. She pulled out her phone and started typing. You need evidence, she continued. You need undeniable proof of their theft, their abuse, and their unfitness to be around a child. You need to catch them red-handed. I can't live with them, I whispered, shaking my head. I hate them. Good. Use that hate, Brenda said. Hate is fuel. Tears are useless. She slid her phone across the counter towards me. It was a contact card for a lawyer named Marcus Stone. Marcus is a shark, Brenda said. He handled my divorce and my business lawsuits. I've already texted him. He'll take your case pro bono as a favor to me. But he needs ammo. What kind of ammo? Everything. Recordings of them admitting to the theft. Proof of Travis's drinking around the child. And... She paused, looking at me with pity. Proof of infidelity. Infidelity? I blinked. Derek isn't cheating. He's a coward, but he's not a cheater. He barely leaves the house. Brenda raised an eyebrow. Derek is a weak man who wants to feel powerful. Travis knows that. If Travis wants to destroy your marriage permanently, he would supply the temptation. Are you sure there isn't someone else? A chill went down my spine. I thought about the late nights in the garage. The sudden password change on Derek's phone. The way he wouldn't look at me. I don't know, I stammered. Find out, Brenda said. If he is cheating, and we can prove he spent marital assets on an affair while draining your savings, we can destroy him in court. We can get you full custody, the house, and alimony. So the plan is... I go back? I asked, feeling sick. The plan is a Trojan horse, Brenda smiled, and it was a terrifying smile. You go back. You apologize. You play the submissive, beaten-down wife they want you to be. You tell them you're sorry. You cook them dinner. I can't apologize to them, I said, my pride flaring up. You are an actress now, Valerie, Brenda said sternly. You aren't apologizing. You are infiltrating. You buy yourself 1 week. You fill that house with cameras and recorders. You gather the evidence. And when the trap is set, you snap it shut. I looked out the window at the frozen lake. I thought about Travis laughing. I thought about my dad's oak tree. I thought about Josie's future. Brenda was right. If I walked away now, I walked away with nothing. If I went back, I could take everything. 1 week, I said. 1 week, Brenda nodded. I'll watch Josie here whenever you can get her out. But you need to be in that house tonight. Tell them you were hysterical. Tell them you were wrong. I finished the wine in 1 gulp. It tasted like blood. Okay, I said. I'll do it. Leaving the safety of Brenda's mansion felt like stepping out of an airlock into space. I left Josie with Brenda for the night, telling her it was a sleepover with the rich aunt, so she wouldn't have to witness my humiliation. I drove back to my house. The driveway had been plowed, likely by the neighbor, not Derek. The lights were on. I sat in the car for 10 minutes, hyperventilating. I had to turn off the part of my brain that had self-respect. I had to turn off the head nurse who gave orders and saved lives. I had to become the little woman. I pulled out my phone and sent the text Brenda and I had drafted. To Derek, I'm coming home. I'm sorry. I overreacted. I checked the bank account and I panicked, but I know we can work this out. Please let me in. It was physically painful to type I overreacted. But I hit send. 3 dots appeared instantly. Derek, finally. Door is unlocked. No, I'm sorry. No, are you okay? Just entitlement. I walked up the path. The same path I had walked down 3 nights ago. I opened the door. The smell hit me first. Stale beer, fried food, and something musty. The house was a wreck. There were pizza boxes on the floor. My decorative pillows were on the ground. Travis was on the couch, feet on the coffee table. He didn't even look up from the TV. Patricia was in the kitchen, clanging pots. Derek stood in the hallway, looking awkward. "You're back," Derek said. "I'm back," I said, keeping my eyes down. I didn't have anywhere else to go." "We told you that," Travis called out from the living room. "You need us, Val. You're nothing without this family." I dug my nails into my palms. 1 week, I told myself. 1 week. "I know," I said softly. "I'm sorry I took Josie. She's safe at a friend's house. I just wanted to come talk." Patricia walked out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel, my dish towel. "Well, you certainly caused a scene, Valerie. The neighbors were asking questions. I had to tell them you were having a mental breakdown." A mental breakdown. They were already controlling the narrative. "I'm sorry, Patricia," I said. "I was just stressed. About the money." "The money needed to be moved," Travis said, standing up and walking over. He loomed over me, trying to intimidate me. "We're investing it. A business opportunity. It's going to double in a month. You should be thanking me." "Oh," I said, feigning ignorance. "I didn't know." "Derek didn't explain it." "Derek doesn't need to explain everything to you," Travis sneered. "He's the man of the house." "Right," I said. "I understand now." I looked at Derek. "Can we start over? I can pick up extra shifts to make up for the cash flow while the investment grows." Derek's eyes lit up. He looked relieved. He looked pathetic. Yeah, that sounds good, Val. Extra shifts would be great." Of course. They wanted the money back. They had drained the cow dry, and now they needed the cow to start producing milk again. "I'm going to take a shower," I said. "I'm exhausted." "Dinner is at 6, Patricia said. "Since you're back, you can cook tomorrow." "My back is hurting." "Okay," I said. I walked upstairs to our bedroom. It was messy. Derek's clothes were everywhere. I went into the bathroom and locked the door. I turned on the shower to drown out any sound. Then, I reached into my bag and pulled out the gear Brenda had given me. She had a friend in private security. I had 3 tiny cameras, disguised as USB chargers, and 2 voice-activated recorders the size of a stick of gum. My hands were shaking, but this time, it was from adrenaline, not fear. I had a mission. I placed the first camera in the bedroom, pointed at the bed. If Derek was cheating, or if they talked about their plans in here, I would catch it. I hid a recorder taped under the nightstand. I knew I had to get one in the living room and one in the kitchen. That would be harder. I would have to do it when they were asleep or distracted. I stared at myself in the mirror. I looked tired. My eyes were dark. But there was something else in my reflection. A sharpness. A predator's gaze. They thought they had broken me. They thought I came back because I was weak. They didn't know that I wasn't the cow anymore. I was the butcher. And the slaughter was scheduled for next Saturday, at their precious 40th anniversary party that they were forcing me to pay for. I turned off the shower and stepped out, ready to play the role of a lifetime. But I wasn't prepared for what I would find on that first recording. I wasn't prepared to learn that the money wasn't just stolen, it was used to finance something that would make me sick to my stomach. The first night back in my own house was a psychological torture test I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. I had expected them to be cold, but I hadn't anticipated the sheer level of entitlement. They didn't just want me back for my paycheck, they wanted me back as a servant. I woke up on Monday morning at 5 a.m., my internal alarm clock set for my nursing shift. But then I remembered, I had taken personal leave for the week. This was my week of espionage. I walked downstairs to the kitchen. It looked like a fraternity house after a rager. Sticky beer spills on the counter, a mountain of dirty dishes in the sink, and a smell that was a mix of stale pizza and dirty laundry. Patricia was already up, sitting at my kitchen island, drinking coffee from my favorite mug, the one Josie gave me for Mother's Day that said "World's Best Mom." "Good morning," I said, keeping my voice small and meek. Patricia didn't look up from her iPad. "The coffee maker is loud. You should buy a quieter one." It woke me up. I gripped the edge of the counter. "I'll look into that." "Since you're not working this week," she continued, waving a hand vaguely at the mess, "you can deep clean the kitchen. And Bob needs his shirts ironed. He has a meeting. Bob hasn't had a job interview in 10 years. His meeting was probably playing poker at the community center." "Okay," I said. "I'll do it." I spent the next 4 hours scrubbing. I got on my hands and knees and scrubbed the floor where Travis had tracked in mud. I washed the dishes they had soiled. I ironed Bob's oversized flannel shirts. Every swipe of the sponge, every hiss of the iron, I visualized scrubbing them out of my life. While I was cleaning, I was also working. When Patricia went to the bathroom, I slid a tiny voice recorder under the living room sofa, taping it to the wooden frame. When Travis went out to buy cigarettes, I plugged a USB charger camera into the outlet facing the dining table. By noon, the house was rigged. Travis came back around lunch, looking hungover. He flopped onto the couch I had just vacuumed. "Hey, Val," he shouted. "Make me a sandwich. Turkey. No mayo." I stood in the kitchen doorway. My instinct was to throw the toaster at him. But I remembered Aunt Brenda's words, "The Trojan horse doesn't bite, it waits." "Sure, Travis," I said. I made the sandwich. I brought it to him. "Thanks," he grunted, taking a bite. Then he looked at me with a smirk. "See? This is how it should be. You know, Derek was really thinking about divorcing you." I had to talk him down. I told him, "She's useful if you train her right." My blood ran cold. You told him that?" "Yeah. You're lucky I'm such a good brother. Most guys wouldn't take back a wife who abandons the family. You're on probation, Val. Don't screw it up." I forced a smile. A painful, tight smile. "Thank you, Travis. I appreciate you looking out for our marriage." I walked back to the kitchen, my hands shaking so hard I had to grip the sink. Probation. I was on probation in the house my father built, paid for by the salary I earned saving lives, judged by a man who hadn't paid a bill in his life. That night, Derek came home from work. He looked exhausted, but when he saw the clean house and the smell of roast chicken, which I made to sedate them, he relaxed. "Wow," he said, loosening his tie. "This is nice, Val. It feels like a home again." "I'm trying, Derek," I whispered, pouring him a glass of wine. "I really want to make this work." "I know," he said, patting my hand condescendingly. "I'm proud of you for swallowing your pride. It's very attractive." Later that night, while Derek was snoring beside me, I slipped out of bed. I went downstairs to the living room. The house was silent. I retrieved the recorder from under the couch and plugged it into my laptop, putting on my headphones. I fast-forwarded through the sounds of the TV and Patricia's complaining. Then, I found it. A conversation from that afternoon, while I was upstairs folding laundry. Travis's voice, "So, did you call the realtor?" Patricia's voice, "Yes. She said with the market right now, we can get $450,000 for this place easily." Travis, "Nice. That's enough to pay off my debts and get us that condo in Florida. Plus, enough for Derek to start fresh." Patricia, "But the deed is in her name." Travis, "Don't worry about that. I practiced her signature. It's easy. She's so stressed out right now, she won't even notice the paperwork if Derek slips it in with the insurance forms. Or we just forge it. Who's gonna check? I pressed pause. I sat in the dark, the laptop screen illuminating my face. Forgery. Real estate fraud. Conspiracy. They weren't just parasites. They were criminals. They were planning to sell my father's house out from under me and run off to Florida. I saved the file. I named it evidence_1. I looked at the sleeping form of Travis on the couch. He had fallen asleep watching ESPN. I felt a strange sense of calm. They thought I was the maid. They didn't know I was the executioner. But the next recording would hurt more than the fraud. Because it wasn't about money. It was about betrayal in its purest, ugliest form. Tuesday. Day 2 of my undercover operation. I sent Josie to school from Aunt Brenda's house. I told Derek that Josie was staying with a friend from school for a few days because she was traumatized by the storm and needed space. He didn't even argue. He seemed relieved not to have to look his daughter in the eye. I went to work, which really meant I drove to a coffee shop 2 towns over to meet with Marcus Stone, the lawyer Brenda hired. Marcus was a sharp man in a tailored suit who looked like he ate nails for breakfast. He listened to the recording of Travis and Patricia planning the forgery. "This is gold," Marcus said, tapping his pen on the desk. "Attempted fraud. Conspiracy. But we need more to nail the coffin on the custody battle. We need to prove Derek is unfit, not just a victim of his family." "I found something else," I said, my voice trembling slightly. I pulled out the second recorder. I had retrieved it from the potted plant in the sunroom, where Derek liked to take his private calls. I played the file for Marcus. Derek's voice, hushed. "Hey, babe. Can you talk?" Pause. "Derek, no, she's back." I know. I didn't have a choice. We need her to pay for the anniversary party on Saturday. Mom would kill me if we canceled. Pause. "Derek, don't worry, Cindy. It's just temporary. Travis has a plan. We're going to sell the house. Once the cash hits the account, I'm filing for divorce. I'll kick her out, and we can finally go to Hawaii." Pause. "Derek, I love you too. She's pathetic, honestly. She's scrubbing the floors right now. It's sad. I can't wait to be with a real woman." I stopped the recording. I sat in the lawyer's office, staring at a fern in the corner. I didn't cry. I felt like I had been hollowed out, scraped clean of any emotion except a cold, hard resolve. "Cindy," I said quietly. "He's seeing someone named Cindy. Do you know her?" Marcus asked gently. "I think so," I realized, the pieces clicking together. Travis introduced him to a new colleague a few months ago. Cindy from HR. Travis kept saying how fun she was compared to me. It was a setup. Travis didn't just encourage the affair, he engineered it. He wanted to ensure Derek's loyalty was completely severed from me. "This is enough for a fault-based divorce," Marcus said. Adultery. Dissipation of marital assets, if he spent money on her. Did you see the bank statements? The $2,500 to Elite Boat Rentals. I recalled. We don't have a boat. Cindy posts pictures on Instagram of weekends at the lake. Bingo, Marcus said. He leaned back. Valerie, you have them. We can file today. No, I said. Marcus looked surprised. No? Not today, I said, standing up. Saturday. The anniversary party. They want me to pay for it? Fine. I'll pay for the entertainment, too. I drove home with a new mission. I needed to ensure Cindy was at that party. When I got home, Derek was in the kitchen, looking at his phone with a goofy smile. He hid it quickly when I walked in. "Hey, honey," he said. "How was, your day off?" "Great," I lied. "I was actually thinking about the party on Saturday. Your mom wants it to be perfect. Since we invited so many of your family, don't you think we should invite some of your work friends? To show off your success?" Derek blinked. "My work friends?" "Yeah. Invite the whole team. Invite that girl, what's her name? Cindy? The one Travis likes? Maybe we can set them up?" Derek's eyes widened. He looked panicked, then intrigued. The idiot actually thought he could pull it off. He thought he could have his wife and his mistress in the same room and get away with it because he thought I was stupid. "That's actually a nice idea, Val," he stammered. "Travis does need a date. I'll ask her." "Perfect," I smiled. "I'll make sure there's plenty of champagne." I walked away before he could see the look in my eyes. The trap was set. The guest list included his parents, his brother, his mistress, and, unbeknownst to him, my entire nursing unit, Marcus the lawyer, and a private security team. They wanted a party to celebrate 40 years of the Miller family? I was going to give them a celebration they would never, ever forget. The days leading up to Saturday were a blur of manic preparation. To the outside world, I was the dutiful daughter-in-law, running errands, ordering flowers, and finalizing the catering menu. To the Miller family, I was the useful idiot who was financing their ego trip. Patricia was in her element. She treated me like her personal assistant. "Valerie, make sure the napkins are linen, not paper." "We aren't peasants," she commanded on Thursday, lounging on the sofa I paid for. "Of course, Patricia," I said, writing it down in my notebook. Underneath napkins, I wrote, "Call Marcus, confirm eviction notice." "And Valerie," she added, "I want a slideshow of Bob and me. Something touching. Use the photos from our trips. I'm working on a very special video presentation," I promised. "It will be the highlight of the night." "Good," she sniffed. "At least you're making yourself useful." Friday night, the day before the party, the house was buzzing. Travis was actually helping by moving the furniture out of the living room to make a dance floor. He was whistling. He thought he was days away from being rich. I found him in the garage, smoking. "Hey Val," he grinned, blowing smoke in my direction. "Party's gonna be lit. Cindy is coming. She's bringing a friend for me." "That's great, Travis," I said. "I'm glad you'll have support." He laughed. "You have no idea." "Hey, thanks for paying for the booze." I ordered the top-shelf whiskey. "Enjoy it," I said. "It's the last drink you'll ever have in this house." "What?" he asked, frowning. I said, "I hope it's enough for the whole house," I covered quickly. He shrugged and went back to his phone. He was so arrogant, so sure of his victory, that he didn't even hear the threat. That night, I went to stay at Aunt Brenda's. I told Derek I needed to prep the gift bags there because there was more space. The truth was, I couldn't spend another night under the same roof as them without screaming. At Brenda's, the atmosphere was like a war room. Marcus was there. So was Sarah, my best friend and fellow ER nurse. "Okay, let's review the timeline," Brenda said, pointing to a whiteboard. 7 p.m. guests arrive, I recited. 8 p.m. dinner is served. 8:45 p.m. speeches. 9 p.m. the video. 9:05 p.m. the takedown. Sarah squeezed my hand. "Are you sure you can do this, Val? You can just let the lawyers handle it. You don't have to be on stage." I thought about the blizzard. I thought about Josie crying in the backseat. I thought about Derek calling me pathetic to his mistress. "No," I said, my voice steady. They humiliated me publicly. They locked me out for the neighborhood to see. I need to end this publicly. I need them to know that I am not the victim. That's my girl, Brenda said, pouring me a tea. We have security stationed at the front and back doors. As soon as the video ends, Marcus will step in with the papers. The police are on standby for Travis regarding the fraud charges we dug up from his old job. Wait, you found fraud? I asked. Oh yes, Marcus smirked. Travis has a warrant in Wisconsin for writing bad checks. We just reminded the authorities of his current location. I slept soundly that night for the first time in a week. Saturday morning arrived with bright sunshine. It was the day of the party. I dressed with armor-like precision. Instead of the frumpy dresses Patricia usually pressured me to wear, I chose a sleek, navy blue dress that fit perfectly. I wore my hair down. I put on red lipstick. When I arrived at the house, caterers were already setting up. The house looked beautiful. My father's house. It was decorated to celebrate the people who were trying to steal it. The irony was suffocating. Derek met me at the door. He looked nervous. Val, you look different. It's a special night, I smiled. Is Cindy here yet? Yeah. She's helping Mom with her makeup, he mumbled, looking guilty. Wonderful. I walked into the living room. The room was transformed. But my eyes went straight to the large projection screen set up in the corner. It was connected to my laptop. I walked over and checked the connection. The file was queued up. It wasn't the slideshow of Bob and Patricia's vacations. It was a file named the_truth.mp4. I took a deep breath. The guests were starting to arrive. My nursing colleagues walked in, looking sharp and confused why they were invited to an anniversary party for people they didn't know. I winked at Sarah. She nodded. They were my witnesses. Then, Cindy walked in. She was younger than me, wearing a dress that was a little too tight. She looked at me with a mix of pity and smugness. She thought she was the winner. She thought she was replacing the boring wife. Hi, I'm Valerie, I said, extending my hand. So glad you could come. Hi, she said, shaking my hand limply. Derek speaks so highly of you. Does he? I smiled. He speaks about you often, too. Her smile faltered. I turned away and walked toward the microphone stand. The room was filling up. The air was thick with perfume and lies. It was time. By 8:30 p.m., the party was in full swing. The house was packed with about 50 people, Patricia's bridge club, Bob's old drinking buddies, Travis's sketchy friends, and my confused but loyal nursing team. The champagne was flowing. The atmosphere was celebratory. Patricia was holding court on my velvet sofa, wearing a sequined gown that looked ridiculous. She was accepting compliments on her beautiful home. Oh, thank you, I heard her say to a neighbor. We've done so much work on it. It's really a family legacy. I stood by the kitchen island, sipping sparkling water. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, but my face was stone. Derek was hovering near Cindy by the punch bowl. Every time I looked over, they were whispering and giggling. Travis was at the bar, already drunk, loudly telling a story about how he manages his family's assets. Bob clinked a fork against his glass. The room went quiet. Attention, everyone. Bob bellowed, his face flushed. If I could have your attention. He stood up, swaying slightly. 40 years. 40 years I've been married to this wonderful woman, Patricia. And look at where we are. Look at this magnificent house our son has provided for us. He gestured to Derek. Derek smiled sheepishly. It takes a strong family to build a legacy, Bob continued. We've had our ups and downs, but we stuck together. We know what matters. Loyalty. Respect. I almost choked on my water. Loyalty? Respect? And I want to thank my son, Derek, and his wife, Valerie. Bob added my name as an afterthought, like a footnote, for opening their home. Even if Valerie did almost ruin the week with her little episode. A few people chuckled. My nursing friends didn't. Sarah looked like she was about to throw a chair. I held up a hand to stop her. Wait. But we forgave her. Bob laughed. Because that's what families do. Cheers. Cheers, the room echoed. Bob sat down, looking pleased with himself. And now, Patricia announced, standing up. I believe my daughter-in-law has prepared a special video tribute for us. She gestured to me with a queen-like wave of her hand. Valerie, dear, go ahead. Don't mess up the audio like you did at Christmas. The room turned to look at me. 50 pairs of eyes. Derek looked bored. Travis looked smug. Cindy looked impatient. I walked to the microphone stand near the screen. I adjusted the mic. My hands were steady now. The fear was gone. In its place was a cold, righteous power. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Patricia, I said, my voice clear and amplified. You're right. This house is a legacy. My father, Dr. Vance, built it with his own hands. He taught me that a home is a sanctuary. The room went silent. This wasn't the speech they expected. You talk a lot about family, I continued, looking directly at Derek. About loyalty. So, I wanted to show everyone exactly what family means to the Millers. I wanted to show the true face of the love in this house. Derek frowned. He sensed something was wrong. He took a step forward. Val? I made a video, I said. Not of your vacations, but of the moments that really define who you are. I looked at Travis. He stopped drinking. Enjoy the show, I whispered. I hit the spacebar on my laptop. The lights dimmed. The projector beam cut through the darkness. On the screen, a shaky, vertical video appeared. It was dark, snowy, and chaotic. But the audio was crystal clear. It was the footage I had recorded on my phone before it died that night in the blizzard. On screen, the view through a frosted window. Travis's face, distorted and ugly, holding a beer. Audio, freeze to death, useless coward. No girls allowed tonight. The crowd gasped. A collective, sharp intake of breath. On screen, Derek standing behind Travis, looking down, doing nothing. Audio, my voice screaming, Derek. Your daughter is freezing. Audio, Travis laughing. Go find a shelter, Nurse Ratchet. I watched the room. Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. Bob froze. Cindy looked confused. But I wasn't done. The video cut to a black screen with a timestamp, Tuesday, 2 p.m. Audio, Derek's voice. Don't worry, Cindy. It's just temporary. Travis has a plan. We're going to sell the house. Once the cash hits the account, I'm filing for divorce. I'll kick her out. The silence in the room was deafening. It was heavier than the blizzard snow. I looked at Derek. His face was pale, drained of all blood. He looked like a ghost. He looked at Cindy. Cindy backed away from him, horrified. I looked at Travis. His jaw was unhinged. I looked at the audience. My colleagues were nodding, grim satisfaction on their faces. The neighbors looked sick. The video ended. The screen went white. I didn't turn the lights back on. I stood in the glow of the projector, holding the microphone like a weapon. That, I said, my voice cutting through the shock, is how my husband and his family treat their legacy. They locked a 7-year-old girl in a blizzard. They stole her college fund. And they plan to sell this house, my father's house, to fund a vacation for our mistress. I pointed at Cindy. She's right there. Say hi, Cindy. Cindy burst into tears and ran toward the door. The room erupted. Chaos. Absolute, beautiful chaos. The room exploded into noise. People were shouting, chairs were scraping against the floor. Patricia was clutching her chest, doing her best impression of a dying swan. Lies, she shrieked. It's all fake. Deep fakes. She's a witch. Travis lunged toward me. Turn it off. You bitch, turn it off. But before he could reach me, 2 large men in black suits stepped out from the kitchen shadows. Private security. One of them intercepted Travis, grabbing his arm and twisting it behind his back with practiced ease. Let go of me. Travis screamed. This is my house. Actually, I said into the microphone, my voice booming over the din. It's not. I looked straight at Derek. He was standing alone in the middle of the dance floor. Cindy had fled. His parents were hysterical. His brother was restrained. He looked at me, and for the first time in years, he truly saw me. He didn't see the doormat. He didn't see the ATM. He saw Valerie Vance, the daughter of Thomas Vance, the head nurse of the ER. Derek, I said. You wanted to sell the house? You wanted a divorce? He stammered, tears streaming down his face. Val, baby, please. It was just talk. I didn't mean it. Travis made me say it. Travis made you lock your daughter in the snow? I asked. I was scared, he wept. Please, Val. Don't do this in front of everyone. You did it to me in front of the whole neighborhood, I replied coldly. I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment I had dreamed of in the motel room. The moment of total reclamation. I looked out at the room, at the stunned faces of the guests, and then I looked directly into the camera lens of the videographer Patricia had hired. Oh, the irony. CTA start, I have held my tongue for 5 years. I have let these people walk over me to keep the peace. But peace without dignity is just submission. I did this tonight not for revenge, but for the truth. If you are listening to this, and you have ever felt small, ever felt used, ever felt like your voice didn't matter, I need you to know that you are strong enough to stand up. If you are with me right now, if you believe that justice is worth fighting for, please, take a second to hit that like button and comment the number 1 below. Let me know you're here. Let me know I'm not crazy. Your support tells me that I did the right thing. Comment 1 right now, and let's finish this together. CTA end. I turned back to Derek. I'm granting your wish, Derek, I said. I'm filing for divorce. But I'm not leaving. You are. The front door opened. A gust of cold air blew in, followed by Aunt Brenda and Marcus Stone. Behind them were 2 uniformed police officers. The room fell silent again. Marcus walked up to me and handed me a thick envelope. I handed it to Derek. What is this? Derek whispered. That is an immediate eviction notice, Marcus announced loud enough for the room to hear. And a restraining order. You, Travis Miller, Patricia Miller, and Robert Miller have 30 minutes to vacate the premises. If you refuse, you will be arrested for trespassing. You can't do this. Bob shouted, his face purple. Squatters' rights. We live here. Not when there is documented evidence of domestic abuse and child endangerment, Marcus countered smoothly. The video footage of the lockout constitutes a direct threat to the life of a minor. The judge signed the order an hour ago. Abuse? Patricia gasped. We love Josie. You told her to freeze to death, I reminded her. The police officers stepped forward. One of them approached Travis, who was still being held by security. Travis Miller? The officer asked. Yeah, so what? Travis spat. We have a warrant for your arrest from the state of Wisconsin for check fraud and grand larceny. And we have new evidence of financial theft from Mrs. Valerie Miller's accounts. The officer pulled out handcuffs. The sound of the cuffs clicking shut was the sweetest music I had ever heard. No! Patricia screamed, rushing forward. He's a good boy. It's a mistake. Ma'am, step back, the officer warned. Travis was dragged toward the door, shouting obscenities at me. You'll pay for this, Val. You're dead. You hear me? I think you're the one who's going to pay, Travis, I said calmly. Specifically, the $15,000 you stole. I looked at Derek. He was holding the eviction papers, shaking. Pack your bags, Derek, I said. The party's over. The transformation of the party from a celebration to a crime scene was rapid and brutal. Most of the guests fled immediately after the police arrived. My nursing colleagues stayed, forming a protective wall around me near the kitchen. Sarah handed me a glass of wine. That, she whispered, was the most badass thing I have ever seen. The police were escorting Travis to the squad car outside. Patricia was wailing on the sofa, refusing to move. Bob was yelling at Marcus, trying to use legal terms he clearly learned from watching Judge Judy and getting them all wrong. This is entrapment, Bob shouted. Habeas corpus. That's not what that means, Marcus sighed, checking his watch. You have 20 minutes left. Derek was paralyzed. He stood in the middle of the ruined party, looking at the empty spot where Cindy had been, then at his brother being arrested, then at his parents screaming. His world had collapsed in under 10 minutes. He walked over to me. He looked like a beaten dog. Val, he croaked. Where am I supposed to go? I looked at him. I searched my heart for any flicker of sympathy. I found none. I remembered the motel room. I remembered the $42. I remembered him laughing with Travis while I froze. I don't know, Derek, I said. Maybe you can go to Cindy's. Oh wait, she looked pretty upset. Maybe a shelter? You're enjoying this, he whispered, looking horrified. You're cruel. I'm not cruel, I said. I'm just mirroring you. You taught me this. Valerie! Patricia shrieked, finally standing up. She marched over to me, her sequined dress rustling. You ungrateful little brat! After everything we did for you. We gave you a family. You gave me PTSD and a cleaning bill, I shot back. I am not leaving, Patricia declared. This is my house. My son's house. Officer, I called out to the remaining policemen. These individuals are refusing to comply with the eviction order. The officer stepped in. Ma'am, you need to leave now, or I will have to escort you out in cuffs like your son. Patricia's eyes went wide. The threat of public humiliation, real, handcuffed humiliation, was the only thing that could pierce her delusion. Fine, she spat. We don't want to stay in this dump anyway. Come on, Bob. Come on, Derek. She turned to Derek. Get your things. We are leaving this toxic environment. They scrambled upstairs. I motioned for the private security guards to follow them. Make sure they only take clothes, I instructed the guards. Check every bag. They like to steal things that don't belong to them. I stood at the bottom of the stairs and listened. I heard drawers being ripped open. I heard Patricia cursing. I heard Derek sobbing. 10 minutes later, they came down. They were dragging suitcases, garbage bags filled with clothes, and looking completely disheveled. Security stopped Patricia at the door. "Open the bag, ma'am," the guard said. "How dare you," she screeched. The guard unzipped her large tote bag. Inside, nestled among her sweaters, was my jewelry box. The pearl necklace my father gave me for my graduation. My grandmother's diamond earrings. I was just keeping them safe. Patricia stammered, her face turning red. "That's grand larceny," Marcus noted, writing it down. "Add it to the list." I walked over and took the jewelry box. I looked Patricia in the eye. "Get out," I said. They walked out the front door. It wasn't snowing, but it was bitterly cold. They didn't have a car. Bob's truck had a flat tire. Maybe I did that, maybe I didn't, and Travis's car was being towed. They had to call an Uber. I watched from the window as they stood on the curb, shivering, surrounded by their garbage bags. It was a mirror image of me 3 nights ago. Except I had walked away with dignity. They were leaving in shame. Derek looked back at the house one last time. He saw me in the window. He raised a hand, like he was going to wave or beg. I closed the curtains. I turned around to face the empty, quiet room. Aunt Brenda was smiling. Marcus was packing up his briefcase. Sarah was sweeping up the confetti. I took a deep breath. The air tasted different. It tasted clean. "Is it over?" I asked Brenda. "The party is over," Brenda said. "The war? We just won the biggest battle. But now we have to bury the bodies. Legally speaking." I sank onto the sofa, the one Patricia had claimed for months, and kicked off my heels. I was exhausted, but for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of going home. I was home. The silence in the house that night was heavy, but it wasn't lonely. It was the silence of a battlefield after the cannons have stopped firing. Sarah offered to stay the night, but I declined. I needed to reclaim my space alone. I spent the next 3 hours purging the house. I stripped the sheets off the bed where Derek slept and threw them in the trash. I gathered every beer bottle Travis left and smashed them into the recycling bin. I took down the Laugh, love sign Patricia hung and snapped it in half over my knee. I found the painting of the Italian landscape in the attic, dusty but unharmed. I hung it back in its rightful place in the hallway. When I finally went to bed, I slept in the middle of the mattress, limbs sprawled out. No snoring husband. No anxiety about breakfast. Just peace. The next morning, Sunday, I picked up Josie from Aunt Brenda's. "Is the bad game over?" Josie asked as she climbed into the car. "Yes, baby," I smiled. "Game over. We won." "Where are Daddy and Grandma?" "They went on a long time out," I said. "They won't be coming back for a long time." Josie thought about this for a second. "Okay. Can we get a dog now?" I laughed, tears pricking my eyes. Yes. Yes, we can." The next 2 weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. Marcus was a beast. He filed the divorce papers on grounds of adultery and cruelty. Because we had the video evidence and the recording of Derek admitting to the affair, Derek didn't have a leg to stand on. We froze the sale of the house immediately. The realtor Patricia had contacted turned out to be a scam artist friend of Travis's, so we dodged a bullet there. But the real satisfaction came from the criminal charges. Travis was extradited to Wisconsin to face his fraud charges there, but not before being charged in Minnesota for theft of our joint assets. It turned out he had used my $15,000 to pay off a gambling debt to a loan shark, not an investment. Patricia and Bob were living in a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. Without Derek's income, which I had cut off, and without access to my house, they were destitute. They called me 50 times a day. I blocked their numbers. Then came the day I had to go to the police station to give a formal statement regarding the theft. I saw Derek there. He was sitting on a bench in the hallway, waiting to be questioned about his involvement in Travis's schemes. He looked 10 years older. His clothes were wrinkled. He hadn't shaved. He looked up when I walked in. "Val," he said, standing up. "Val, please. I didn't know Travis gambled the money. I thought it was real." "Does it matter, Derek?" I asked, not breaking stride. "You stole it. You gave it to him." "I have nothing," he whispered. "Cindy dumped me. My parents are blaming me for everything. I lost my job because the video, someone posted it on YouTube. My boss saw it." I stopped. "You lost your job?" "Yeah. Character clause. They said they can't employ someone who endangers children." He looked at me with pleading eyes. "I'm homeless, Val. Can I just sleep in the garage? Just for a few nights?" I looked at this man. The man I vowed to love in sickness and in health. But this wasn't sickness. This was a choice. "No," I said. "But I'm your husband." "My husband died the night he watched me walk into a blizzard," I said. "You're just a stranger who looks like him." I walked into the interrogation room and closed the door. That afternoon, I went to the animal shelter with Josie. We walked past the cages, looking at the barking dogs. In the corner, there was a scruffy terrier mix with sad eyes. He looked a bit beaten down, but his tail wagged tentatively when Josie approached. "This one," Josie said. "His name is Banjo." We took Banjo home. That night, as Banjo curled up at the foot of Josie's bed, protecting her in a way her father never did, I finally felt the last knot of tension in my chest loosen. The house was safe. My daughter was safe. And I was free. 6 weeks later, the court date arrived. Divorce court is usually a messy, dragged-out affair. But when you have a mountain of evidence provided by a top-tier lawyer, it moves surprisingly fast. Derek didn't even have a lawyer. He represented himself, wearing an ill-fitting suit he must have borrowed from Bob. He looked small in the courtroom, dwarfed by the mahogany tables and the stern expression of Judge Harrison. I sat next to Marcus, dressed in my best white suit. I felt invincible. "State your name," the judge said. "Derek Miller," he mumbled. "Mr. Miller," the judge looked over her glasses. "I have reviewed the evidence submitted by the plaintiff. The video footage, the financial records, the transcripts. I must say, in my 20 years on the bench, I have rarely seen a case of such egregious marital misconduct." Derek shrank in his seat. "You admit to the withdrawal of $15,842 from the joint accounts?" "Yes, Your Honor, but..." "You admit to changing the locks during a declared weather emergency?" "It was a prank, A prank?" The judge's voice was like a whip. "Leaving a child in negative temperatures is not a prank, Mr. Miller. It is abuse." The gavel came down hard on every ruling. The house awarded 100% to me. Since it was inherited property and kept separate until they tried to steal it, and considering Derek's attempt to defraud me of it, he lost all claim to marital equity in the home. Custody, sole legal and physical custody to me. Derek was granted supervised visitation only, contingent on him completing a parenting class and anger management course. Support, Derek was ordered to repay the $7,900, his half of the stolen money plus penalties, and pay child support. Since he was unemployed, the judge ordered his wages to be garnished immediately upon his future employment. Restraining orders, permanent restraining orders against Travis, Patricia, and Robert Miller for me and Josie. When the judge said, "Case closed," I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 2 months. I walked out of the courtroom. Derek followed me. "Val," he called out. I turned around. Marcus stepped between us, like a bodyguard. "Back off, Mr. Miller," Marcus warned. "I just want to say goodbye to my wife," Derek said, tears in his eyes. "Val, I'm sorry. I really am. I miss you. I miss Josie. I miss the house." "You miss the house," I corrected him. "You miss the comfort. You don't miss me." "I do. I love you." "No, Derek. You love having a mommy. You love having someone pay your bills and tell you you're a good boy. Go back to your mother. She's the only woman you're capable of loving." I turned and walked down the courthouse steps. The sun was shining. The snow from the blizzard had long melted, replaced by the slush of early spring. I got into my car where Aunt Brenda was waiting. "How did it go?" she asked. "Total victory," I said. "Good," she handed me a latte. "Now, let's go celebrate." I booked us a spa day. We drove away. I saw Derek standing on the sidewalk, looking lost. A bus pulled up, blocking him from view. When the bus pulled away, he was gone. Later that week, I heard the news about the rest of them. Travis took a plea deal in Wisconsin. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison for fraud. Patricia and Bob couldn't afford the motel anymore. They moved into a trailer park 2 hours away. Patricia tried to friend me on Facebook under a fake name to spy on me, but I blocked her instantly. They were gone. The weeds had been pulled from my garden. You would think that after the court case, I would be perfectly happy. And I was, mostly. But there is a phantom pain that comes after amputating a limb, even a gangrenous one. I spent a few nights crying. Not for Derek, but for the time I wasted. 5 years. I gave that man 5 years of my youth, my energy, my love. I mourned the dream of the happy family I thought I had. But healing isn't a straight line. One evening, about 3 months after the divorce, I was in the front yard planting tulips around the oak tree. Banjo was chasing a squirrel. Josie was drawing with chalk on the driveway. A beat-up sedan pulled up to the curb. It was Derek. He didn't get out. He just rolled down the window. He looked better than he did in court, but still rough. He was wearing a delivery driver uniform. I stood up, wiping dirt from my hands. Banjo barked, a low warning growl. "Hey," Derek said. "You're not supposed to be here, Derek," I said, checking the distance. Restraining order. I know. I had a delivery on the next street. I just wanted to see. He looked at Josie. Josie looked up, saw him, and then looked back at her chalk drawing. She didn't run to him. She didn't wave. She just went back to drawing. That broke him. I saw his face crumble. "She hates me," he whispered. "She doesn't hate you," I said. "She's indifferent." "That's worse." "I'm trying, Val," he said. "I'm working. I'm taking the classes. Is there any chance, in the future?" I looked at him. I looked at the house behind me. The house was glowing in the sunset. It was peaceful. It was mine. "Derek," I said softly. "You chose your family. You chose to stand behind Travis while he abused us. You can't undo that. The snow melted, but the frost killed the roots. There is nothing left here for you." "I made a mistake," he sobbed. "A mistake is forgetting to take out the trash," I said. "Locking your family in a blizzard is a character flaw. Goodbye, Derek." I turned my back on him. Val, he called out. I didn't turn around. I walked over to Josie. Who is that man? Josie asked. Just someone who used to live here, I said. Come on, let's go inside. I'm making tacos. Yay! Tacos! Josie cheered, jumping up. We walked inside and locked the door. Not to keep people out, but to keep the warmth in. I heard Derek's car drive away. It was the last time I ever saw him. That night, I sat by the fireplace with a glass of wine. I looked around the living room. It was just me, my daughter, and my dog. It wasn't the picture-perfect family society tells you to want. But it was real. It was safe. And it was full of love. I realized then that I hadn't just survived. I had evolved. The blizzard didn't kill me. It woke me up. It has been 6 months since the night of the blizzard. Life is different now. Better. The house looks different. I painted the living room a warm sage green. Patricia hated green. I bought a new, ridiculously comfortable sofa that Travis never sat on. The kitchen smells like fresh coffee and cinnamon, not stale beer. I'm still the head nurse at the ER. In fact, I got another raise last month. But now, when I come home, I don't feel dread. I don't have to shrink myself to fit into someone else's fragile ego. Aunt Brenda comes over for dinner every Sunday. She's teaching Josie how to play chess. You have to think 3 moves ahead, she tells her. Never let them see you coming. We visited the oak tree yesterday. It's thriving. The branches are full of green leaves. I told Josie about her grandfather, about how he built this house with love. We have to protect it, Josie said, patting the bark. We do, I agreed. And we protect ourselves. I still get messages from women who saw the video. It went viral in our small town, then beyond. Strangers reach out to tell me their stories of toxic in-laws, narcissistic partners, and the fear of leaving. I tell them all the same thing: you are not a doormat. You are the architect of your own life. If they lock you out, build your own door. I'm dating again. Just casually. A nice doctor from the hospital named Mark. He respects me. He asks about my day. And most importantly, he has his own house and healthy boundaries with his mother. But I'm not in a rush. I'm happy just being Valerie. Sometimes, when it snows, I get a little anxiety. I remember the cold. I remember the feeling of the key not turning. But then I look at Banjo sleeping by the fire, and I look at Josie doing her homework at the kitchen table, and the fear melts away. They wanted me to freeze to death. They wanted me to be a useless coward. Instead, I set their world on fire, and I used the heat to warm my home. So, to anyone listening who feels trapped in a storm right now, keep walking. Find your diner. Find your Aunt Brenda. And when you're ready, go back and reclaim what is yours. Because the only thing that should freeze is the relationship that hurts you. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm Valerie, and I'm finally warm.